Billionaire husband blames her after 12 months of no intimacy. Says, it was a loyalty test. The camera fades in. Soft piano music plays in the background. You know that feeling when everything you thought was real turns out to be a lie? When the man you trusted with your whole heart looks you in the eye and says the cruelest words you've ever heard. Rosie Kong thought she knew her husband. Thought their love was unshakable. Thought the distance between them was just a rough patch every marriage goes through. But when Leonard finally spoke the truth after 12 months of silence, of rejection, of sleeping in separate rooms, after a full year of her questioning her own worth, her own body, her own existence, what he said shattered everything. It was a loyalty test. 4 words that destroyed a marriage. 4 words that revealed the man she loved had been playing games with her heart for an entire year. But here's what Leonard didn't know. Rosie had a secret too. Before we dive into this story, if you're new here, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. New York? London? Tokyo? I want to know. And subscribe because trust me, you don't want to miss how this ends. To my returning viewers, welcome back, fam. You know I've got something special for you today. Now settle in, because this story is going to take you on a ride. Stay until the very end because the twist? You won't see it coming. Let me take you back to where it all began. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse like it was trying to break through. Rosie stood in the living room, staring at the Seattle skyline through the glass, watching the city lights blur through the storm. The Space Needle glowed in the distance, surrounded by darkness. Behind her, Leonard sat at the dining table, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard. Always working. Always busy. Always somewhere else even when he was right there in the room. Rosie wrapped her arms around herself. The penthouse was cold. Or maybe it was just her. Maybe she'd been cold for so long she couldn't remember what warmth felt like anymore. 34 years old. Married for 3 years. And she couldn't remember the last time her husband had touched her with anything resembling desire. 12 months. It had been exactly 12 months since Leonard had reached for her in bed. 12 months since he'd kissed her like he meant it. 12 months since she'd felt like a wife instead of a roommate who happened to share an expensive address. I'm going to bed, she said quietly, not turning around. Leonard's typing didn't stop. Okay. That was it. Just, okay. Not, I'll join you soon. Not, wait for me. Just, okay. Rosie closed her eyes. When had she become so invisible? She walked toward the master bedroom, her bare feet silent on the marble floor. Everything in this penthouse was beautiful and cold. Just like her marriage had become. The bedroom door clicked shut behind her. She caught her reflection in the full-length mirror and stopped. Brown skin glowing even in the dim light. Natural curls pulled back in a silk scarf. Full curves that she'd spent years learning to love. At 34, she was supposed to be in her prime. She took care of herself, yoga 4 times a week, healthy eating, skincare routines that could rival a spa. So why did her husband look at her like she was furniture? Rosie climbed into bed, pulling the covers up to her chin. The California king felt enormous with just her in it. Leonard would come to bed eventually, probably after she was asleep. He'd slip in on his side, careful not to wake her, maintaining the careful distance they'd perfected over the past year. She stared at the ceiling, blinking back tears. Question for you watching. Have you ever felt invisible to someone you love? Like you're right there but they just don't see you? Drop a comment because I want to hear your stories. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She grabbed it, pathetically hopeful it might be Leonard texting her from the other room. Some sweet message. Some acknowledgement that she existed. It was her best friend, Sienna. Sienna. Girl, you okay? You've been quiet. Rosie's thumbs hovered over the keyboard. What was she supposed to say? That her billionaire husband provided everything except the one thing she actually needed? That she lived in a penthouse overlooking Seattle but felt more alone than she ever had in her tiny studio apartment back in her 20s? Rosie, I'm fine. Just tired. Long day. The 3 dots appeared immediately. Sienna. Rosie. Stop lying to me. Coffee tomorrow. 10 a.m. Zeitgeist. Don't make me come kidnap you from that ivory tower. Despite everything, Rosie smiled. Sienna had been her friend since college, had been there through everything. If anyone could see through her careful facade, it was Sienna. Rosie, okay. I'll be there. She set the phone down and rolled onto her side, facing Leonard's empty half of the bed. The sheets on his side were perfectly smooth. Untouched. Like a hotel room waiting for a guest who might never arrive. How had they gotten here? 3 years ago, everything had been different. Rosie had been working as a user experience designer at a tech startup in Seattle, loving her job, living her life. She'd moved to Seattle from the Bay Area 5 years before that, chasing opportunity and change. Her parents had immigrated from South Korea before she was born, built a life in California, given her every advantage they could. And she'd made something of herself. Good career. Good friends. Good life. She'd met Leonard at a charity gala she'd almost skipped. Her company had donated, and she'd been voluntold to attend. She remembered standing by the bar, nursing a glass of champagne and trying to look like she belonged among Seattle's elite. And then Leonard had appeared next to her. Tall. Handsome. Dark hair starting to silver at the temples, even though he was only 36 at the time. Sharp jawline. Blue eyes that actually seemed to see her. He'd been wearing a tuxedo like he was born in it, but when he smiled at her, it was genuine. Warm. These things are exhausting, aren't they? He'd said. She'd laughed. Is it that obvious I don't want to be here? Only because I was thinking the exact same thing. He'd extended his hand. Leonard Davis. Rosie Kong. His handshake was firm but not aggressive. His eyes stayed on her face, not wandering. They'd talked for an hour, tucked away in that corner by the bar. He'd been funny, self-deprecating, interested in what she did. He'd asked questions about her work, her life, her dreams. She hadn't known who he was. Hadn't known that Leonard K. Davis was the founder and CEO of Apex Ventures, one of the most successful venture capital firms in the Pacific Northwest. Hadn't known he was worth billions. She'd just known he made her laugh. Made her feel seen. Made her forget she was at a stuffy gala surrounded by people she didn't know. He'd asked for her number. She'd given it to him. 3 months of dating that felt like a dream. Leonard had been attentive, romantic, present. He'd taken her to Pike Place Market at sunrise to watch the fishmongers throw salmon. They'd hiked in the Cascades. They'd spent rainy Sundays in bed watching movies and ordering takeout. He'd told her about his childhood, growing up in Boston, old money family that expected greatness, pressure that had driven him to prove himself on his own terms. He'd built Apex from nothing, turned it into an empire. She'd told him about her parents, her father's medical practice, her mother's relentless work ethic, the expectations of success that came with being first generation. The pressure to make their sacrifices worth it. They'd understood each other. Or so she'd thought. 6 months after they met, Leonard had proposed. Private dinner at Canlis, the Seattle skyline spread out below them. The ring had been perfect, elegant, understated, exactly her style even though she'd never told him what she liked. "Marry me, Rosie," he'd said. "I know it's fast. But when you know, you know. And I know I want to spend my life with you." She'd said yes through happy tears. The wedding had been 6 months later. Intimate ceremony, just family and close friends, at a vineyard in Woodinville. Her parents had flown up from California, beaming with pride. Leonard's family had been polite. His mother had smiled the right smiles, said the right things, but Rosie had sensed the reservation. The daughter of Korean immigrants wasn't quite what they'd envisioned for their son. But Leonard hadn't cared. On their wedding day, he'd looked at her like she was the only person in the world. That was 3 years ago. "Here's what I want to know from you. Have you ever watched someone you love change right in front of your eyes? Like they became a completely different person. Tell me in the comments. For the first 2 years, marriage had been good. Really good. Leonard worked long hours, sure, but he came home to her. They had dinner together most nights. Weekend trips to the San Juan Islands. Lazy mornings where they actually touched each other, wanted each other, felt like partners. And then, slowly, something shifted. It started small. Leonard staying at the office later. Bringing work home more often. Choosing the laptop over conversation. The distance grew so gradually that Rosie hadn't noticed until it was already a canyon between them. And then, 12 months ago, the intimacy stopped. Leonard stopped reaching for her. Stopped kissing her goodbye in the morning. Stopped pulling her close at night. He was polite, cordial, present in the physical sense. But emotionally, physically, he was gone. Rosie had tried everything. She'd initiated. Been direct about what she wanted. Worn lingerie that stayed ignored. Planned romantic dinners that ended with him on his laptop. She'd asked if something was wrong. He'd said he was stressed with work. She'd asked if he was happy. He'd said of course he was. She'd asked if he still loved her. He'd said yes, but it sounded automatic. Rehearsed. And now here she was. 12 months later. Lying alone in a bed big enough for two, wondering if her marriage was already over and she just hadn't admitted it yet. The bedroom door opened. Leonard came in, moving quietly. He thought she was asleep. Rosie kept her eyes closed, her breathing even. Through her lashes, she watched him undress. Button-down shirt discarded on the chair. Slacks folded over the closet door. He moved with the same efficient precision he brought to everything. He climbed into bed, keeping to his side. The mattress barely moved. He was practiced at this now, the art of sharing a bed without actually sharing anything. Rosie's chest ached. She waited until his breathing evened out, until she was sure he was asleep. Then she let the tears slide silently down her face, soaking into her pillow. Tomorrow, she'd meet Sienna. Tomorrow, she'd pretend everything was fine. Tomorrow, she'd keep playing the role of the happy wife. But tonight? Tonight she let herself feel the truth. Her marriage was dying. And she didn't know how to save it. Zeitgeist Coffee was crowded with the usual Seattle morning crowd, freelancers on laptops, students cramming for exams, business people grabbing their fix before heading downtown. Rosie found Sienna at their usual table by the window, 2 lattes already waiting. Sienna looked up as Rosie approached, and her expression immediately shifted from casual to concerned. "Girl," Sienna said, standing up to hug her. "You look exhausted." "Thanks," Rosie said dryly, sinking into the chair across from her friend. That's exactly what every woman wants to hear. Sienna Dixon had been Rosie's roommate sophomore year at the University of Washington. They'd bonded over late-night study sessions, shared heartbreaks, and a mutual love of coffee and cynicism. Sienna was a litigation attorney now, sharp as a blade and just as direct. She was also one of the few people Rosie trusted completely. "Don't deflect," Sienna said, settling back into her chair. Her dark skin glowed even in the gray Seattle morning light, her natural hair styled in neat twists. "Talk to me. What's going on?" Rosie wrapped her hands around the warm latte. "Nothing. Everything's fine." "Rosie, it is. You're a terrible liar. You always have been." Sienna leaned forward. "Is it Leonard?" The name hung in the air between them. Rosie looked out the window. Rain was starting again, because of course it was. This was Seattle. Rain was the default setting. "I don't know what it is," she finally said, her voice quiet. "He's distant. Has been for a while." "How long is a while?" Rosie took a sip of her latte, buying time. "A year. Maybe more." "A year." Sienna's voice rose. Several people glanced over. She lowered her voice. "Rosie, what the hell? Why didn't you say something sooner?" Because I kept thinking it would get better. That it was just work stress. That we'd figure it out. Rosie's eyes burned. He doesn't touch me anymore, Sienna. Doesn't want me. We share a bed, and we might as well be strangers. Sienna's expression hardened. Have you talked to him about it? I've tried. He says everything's fine. Says he's just busy. Says I'm overthinking. Rosie's voice cracked. But I'm not imagining this. Something's wrong. Something changed and I don't know what or why or how to fix it. Maybe he's having an affair. The words landed like a slap. Rosie had thought it, of course. Late at night when Leonard was still at the office. When he came home smelling like expensive cologne and nothing else. But hearing someone else say it out loud made it real in a way that terrified her. I don't think so, Rosie said slowly. I've checked his phone when he's in the shower. No strange messages. No secret calls. Nothing. You checked his phone? Sienna raised an eyebrow. Girl, that's not healthy. I know. But I'm desperate. Rosie's hands tightened around her cup. I just want to understand. I want to know what I did wrong. What you did wrong. Sienna's voice sharpened. Rosie, listen to me. If your husband is pulling away, that's on him. Not you. You can't control other people's behavior. You can only control your response to it. Let me pause here and ask you something. Do you think checking your partner's phone is ever justified? Or is it always a violation of trust? I'm genuinely curious what you think. Comment below. I don't know what to do, Rosie whispered. I love him. I don't want to lose him. But I feel like I'm already losing him and I don't know how to hold on. Sienna reached across the table and took Rosie's hand. Then maybe it's time to stop holding on and start demanding answers. Real answers. Not this everything's fine bullshit he's feeding you. And if he doesn't have answers? If he just doesn't love me anymore? Then you deserve to know that too. So you can decide what to do next. Sienna squeezed her hand. You're not a doormat, Rosie. You're a brilliant, beautiful, successful woman. Don't let anyone, not even Leonard Davis, make you forget that. Rosie nodded, but the words felt hollow. Easy to say. Harder to believe when you're lying alone every night wondering what's wrong with you. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down at the screen. Leonard, dinner tonight? 7 p.m.? Want to talk. Rosie's heart stuttered. Want to talk. Those 3 words could mean anything. Could mean he was finally ready to address the elephant in the room. Could mean he wanted a divorce. Rosie, okay. I'll be home. She looked up at Sienna. He wants to have dinner tonight. Says he wants to talk. Well, Sienna said carefully. That's something. What do you think it means? I have no idea. Rosie felt nauseous. But I guess I'm about to find out. Rosie spent the rest of the day in a fog of anxiety. She went to the gym, pushed herself through a brutal workout, hoping the endorphins would calm her nerves. They didn't. She showered, changed into a simple black dress, nice but not trying too hard, and got home by 6:30. The penthouse was quiet when she walked in. Leonard wasn't home yet. She moved through the space, turning on lights, trying to make it feel less like a museum and more like a home. Their penthouse took up the entire top floor of a building in downtown Seattle. 3,200 square feet of luxury. Open floor plan, chef's kitchen that Rosie barely used, living room with that view of the Space Needle, 3 bedrooms, 3.5 bathrooms. Hardwood floors. Designer furniture. Art on the walls that probably cost more than Rosie made in a year before she married Leonard. It was beautiful. Cold. Empty. She moved into the kitchen and opened the fridge. Leonard had texted earlier that he was having dinner delivered, some upscale place that did takeout for people who could afford it. She found wine in the rack, poured herself a glass of red, and tried to calm her racing heart. The elevator dinged. Leonard was home. Rosie took a long sip of wine and turned to face the door. Leonard walked in carrying bags from Metropolitan Grill, one of Seattle's best steakhouses. He was still in his work clothes, charcoal suit with no tie, top button undone. He looked tired. Or maybe that was just how he always looked now, and Rosie had stopped noticing. "Hey," he said, setting the bags on the counter. "Hey." Rosie's voice came out steadier than she felt. "How was your day?" "Long." He started unpacking the food. "Yours?" "Fine. Met Sienna for coffee this morning." "How is she?" "Good. Still kicking ass in court." The small talk felt absurd. They were dancing around what they both knew was coming. Whatever Leonard wanted to talk about, it wasn't going to be easy. They plated the food in silence. Steaks, asparagus, mashed potatoes. Fancy comfort food. They sat at the dining table, the same table where Leonard usually worked through dinner, and for a moment, it almost felt normal. Almost. "So," Rosie said, cutting into her steak. "You wanted to talk?" Leonard set down his fork. He looked at her directly for the first time in what felt like months. Really looked at her. "I do," he said. "There's something I need to tell you." Rosie's stomach dropped. "Okay." Leonard took a breath. "I know I've been distant lately. I know you've noticed." "Lately?" Rosie couldn't help the bitter edge in her voice. "Leonard, it's been a year." "I know." He ran a hand through his hair. "I know. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for making you feel like I don't care. Like I don't see you." "Then why?" Rosie's voice broke. "Why have you been shutting me out? What did I do wrong?" "You didn't do anything wrong." Leonard's jaw tightened. "That's the thing. You didn't do anything wrong." "Then I don't understand." Tears welled in Rosie's eyes. "If I didn't do anything wrong, why does it feel like you don't want me anymore? Why do we sleep in the same bed but you won't even touch me? Why do I feel like a stranger in my own marriage?" "Okay, pause. Before Leonard answers, I want you to guess. What do you think he's about to say?" "Affair." "He fell out of love? Something else entirely?" Drop your predictions in the comments. Leonard stood up from the table. He walked to the window, his back to her. The Seattle skyline glittered behind him. "I was testing you," he said quietly. Rosie froze. "What?" "The distance. The lack of intimacy. All of it." He turned to face her. "It was a test. A loyalty test." The words didn't make sense. Rosie stared at him, trying to process what he'd just said. "A loyalty test," she repeated slowly. "You've been, what? Ignoring me for 12 months as some kind of test." "I needed to know," Leonard said. "I needed to know if you were with me for me, or for the money, for the lifestyle. I needed to know if you'd stay even when things weren't perfect." Rosie felt like she'd been punched in the chest. "Are you serious right now? I know how it sounds." "Do you?" Rosie stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "Because it sounds like you deliberately hurt me for a year, made me feel worthless, unwanted, invisible, just to test whether I'd leave you?" "I had to know," Leonard said, his voice rising. "You have no idea what it's like, Rosie. Being in my position. Never knowing if people want you or want what you can give them. I had to know if you were real." "I married you," Rosie shouted. "I married you when all I knew was that you made me laugh and you saw me as a person. I didn't know about your money when I fell in love with you. I didn't care." "People change," Leonard said coldly. "Priorities shift. I've seen it happen. I've watched friends' marriages fall apart because their wives only cared about the bank account." "So you decided to torture your own wife just to make sure she wasn't like them?" Rosie's voice shook with rage. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me? What this year has been like?" "It wasn't torture." "Yes, it was." Tears streamed down Rosie's face now. You made me question everything about myself. My body. My worth. Whether I was attractive enough, smart enough, good enough. I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I was failing as a wife. Leonard's expression flickered with something. Guilt, maybe. But his voice stayed defensive. I'm sorry you felt that way. But it was necessary. Necessary. Rosie laughed, the sound hollow. You're sorry I felt that way. Not sorry for what you did. Just sorry about how I reacted to your emotional manipulation. That's not fair. Fair. Rosie's voice rose to a shout. You want to talk about fair? You put me through 12 months of hell because you have trust issues stemming from your privileged upbringing where people might, God forbid, want your money. And I'm supposed to just accept that as reasonable. I had reasons. You had excuses. Rosie grabbed her wine glass, drained it, set it down harder than necessary. You had trauma from past relationships or friendships or whatever. But instead of talking to me, instead of trusting your wife, you decided to play games. To test me like I'm some kind of employee trying to prove myself worthy of your attention. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Leonard? Rosie demanded. Explain it to me. Make it make sense. Leonard's jaw clenched. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The scrutiny. Everyone wants something from me. Everyone has an agenda. I'm your wife. Not everyone. Your wife. And I needed to be sure. You were sure. Rosie's voice cracked. You were sure enough to marry me. You stood up in front of our families and friends and promised to love me, honor me, cherish me. And then you spent a year deliberately withholding all of that to see if I'd pass some test I didn't even know I was taking. Quick question for you watching. Do you think trust needs to be tested in a relationship? Or should it be given freely until proven otherwise? Let me know what you think. I'm trying to apologize, Leonard said stiffly. No, you're not, Rosie shot back. You're trying to explain. To justify. Those aren't the same thing. Silence fell between them. Heavy. Suffocating. Rosie walked to the window, putting distance between them. She stared out at the city lights, at the rain starting to fall again. How many nights had she stood here, feeling lonely? Too many. Did I pass? She asked quietly. Your test. Did I pass? Of course you did. You stayed. You didn't leave despite you treating me like I didn't matter? Rosie turned to look at him. That's the bar? I didn't divorce you after a year of neglect, so congratulations, I must really love you. That's not. That's exactly what you're saying. Rosie's voice was hollow now. Empty. The anger was burning out, leaving just devastation. You tested me. I passed. And now what? We just go back to normal? You start touching me again and we pretend this year didn't happen. Leonard moved toward her. I want to fix this. I want to make it right. How? Rosie asked. How do you make this right? How do you fix 12 months of pain? How do you rebuild trust after admitting you've been lying to me, through omission or action, for a year? I don't know, Leonard admitted. But I'm willing to try. I love you, Rosie. The words should have meant something. Should have felt like relief. Instead, they felt empty. Do you? Rosie asked. Because people who love each other don't do this. They don't play games. They don't test each other like they're interviewing for a position. I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is snapping at someone when you're stressed. This. Rosie gestured between them. This was a calculated, deliberate choice that you made every single day for 12 months. Leonard's expression hardened. So what do you want me to say? That I'm a terrible husband? Fine. I'm a terrible husband. But I'm here now, trying to fix it, and you won't even. I won't even what? Rosie interrupted. Forgive you immediately? Fall into your arms because you finally decided I'm worthy of your attention again. That's not what I said. But it's what you mean. Rosie's voice dropped. You got your answer. I'm not a gold digger. I'm just your wife who loves you despite everything. And now you expect me to be grateful that you've decided to stop torturing me. I never tortured you. Yes, Rosie said firmly. You did. Maybe you didn't mean it that way. Maybe in your head, you were being practical, protecting yourself. But what you did to me, making me invisible, making me question my worth, making me feel unloved in my own home, that was torture. Leonard opened his mouth, closed it. For the first time, he seemed to actually hear her. I don't know what to say, he finally admitted. Neither do I. Rosie walked toward the bedroom. I need space. I need time. I don't know what I need. Rosie, please. Good night, Leonard. She closed the bedroom door behind her and locked it. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body was shaking. Rosie collapsed onto the bed and let herself sob. Great, heaving sobs that she'd been holding back for 12 months. All the pain, all the confusion, all the self-doubt, it poured out of her. Leonard had tested her. He'd watched her suffer and done nothing because he needed to know if she was real. And the worst part? A small, broken part of her still loved him. Still wanted to believe they could fix this. Still wanted to curl up in his arms and feel safe again. But how could she feel safe with someone who'd deliberately hurt her just to see what she'd do? Rosie cried until she had no tears left. Then she lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, wondering if her marriage had just ended or if there was any way to salvage it. She didn't have an answer. Rosie didn't sleep. How could she? Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Leonard's face as he'd said those words. It was a loyalty test. By morning, she felt hollowed out. Empty. She dragged herself out of bed, showered, and dressed in jeans and a sweater. Casual. Comfortable. Armor of a different kind than the designer dresses hanging in her closet. Leonard was already gone when she emerged from the bedroom. A note sat on the kitchen counter in his neat handwriting. I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. But I mean it. Can we talk tonight? L. Rosie crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. Her phone rang. Sienna. Hey, Rosie answered, her voice raw. Oh God, Sienna said immediately. That bad. Worse. Rosie poured herself coffee with shaking hands. Can I come over? I need to get out of here. Of course. I'm home all day. Come now. 20 minutes later, Rosie was sitting on Sienna's couch in her Capitol Hill apartment, wrapped in a blanket, holding another cup of coffee she wasn't drinking. Sienna sat across from her, face tight with anger as Rosie told her everything. He what? Sienna's voice was dangerously quiet. He said it was a loyalty test. That he needed to know if I was with him for the right reasons. A loyalty test, Sienna repeated. For 12 months. Yeah. That manipulative, self-absorbed, emotionally abusive, Sienna cut herself off. I'm sorry. I know you love him. But Rosie, what he did. That's not normal. That's not okay. I know. Rosie's voice was small. I know it's not okay. But I don't know what to do. What do you want to do? I don't know, Rosie admitted. Part of me wants to leave. Pack my stuff, file for divorce, never see him again. But part of me still loves him. Still remembers who he used to be. Still hopes we can fix this. Can you? Sienna asked gently. Can you really fix this kind of betrayal? Here's what I want to know. If you were in Rosie's position, would you stay and try to work it out? Or would you leave immediately? Be honest in the comments. I don't know, Rosie whispered. He says he wants to fix it. Says he loves me. Says it was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Sienna said firmly. A mistake is accidental. What Leonard did was intentional. Calculated. He made a choice every single day for 12 months to continue hurting you. He says he didn't mean to hurt me. Impact matters more than intent. Sienna leaned forward. Even if he didn't intend to cause you pain, he did. And when you told him how much he hurt you, did he take full responsibility? Or did he try to justify it? Rosie closed her eyes. He justified it. Said he had reasons. Said he needed to know. Then he's not actually sorry. He's sorry you're upset. Those are two different things. So what do I do? Rosie's voice broke. I love him, Sienna. I love him and I hate him and I don't know how to reconcile those two things. You don't have to decide right now, Sienna said. You can take time. Figure out what you want. What you need. What you're willing to accept in a marriage and what you're not. He wants to talk tonight. Are you ready to talk to him? No. But I also can't avoid him forever. Rosie pulled the blanket tighter around herself. We live together. We're married. I can't just disappear. You could stay here for a few days. Give yourself space. The offer was tempting. So tempting. But running away wouldn't solve anything. Wouldn't give her the answers she needed. I need to face this, Rosie said. I need to talk to him. Really talk. Not just let him apologize and hope everything goes back to normal. Okay, Sienna said. But promise me something. Promise me you'll think about what you deserve. Not what you can tolerate. What you actually deserve. Because, Rosie, you deserve so much more than this. Rosie nodded, but the words felt foreign. After 12 months of feeling worthless, believing she deserved better was harder than it should be. Rosie stayed at Sienna's until late afternoon. They talked, watched mindless TV, ordered Thai food. Sienna didn't push, didn't demand decisions. She just was there. And that was exactly what Rosie needed. But eventually, Rosie had to go home. Had to face Leonard. Had to figure out what came next. She walked into the penthouse just after 6. Leonard was already there, standing by the window in the same spot where he'd dropped his bombshell last night. He turned when he heard her come in. You came, he said, sounding surprised. I live here, Rosie said flatly. Where else would I go? Leonard flinched. Right. Of course. Rosie set her purse on the counter and turned to face him. You wanted to talk. So talk. I don't know where to start, Leonard admitted. How about with an actual apology? Rosie suggested. Not an excuse. Not a justification. An actual apology where you take responsibility for what you did. Leonard took a breath. You're right. You're absolutely right. He moved closer. I'm sorry, Rosie. I'm sorry for hurting you. For making you feel invisible. For testing you instead of trusting you. For putting you through 12 months of pain because I was too broken to just believe in what we had. The words should have felt like relief. But they just felt like words. Why? Rosie asked. Why did you do it? And I don't want to hear about other people or past experiences. I want to know why you thought it was okay to do this to me specifically. Leonard ran a hand through his hair. My ex-fiancée. Before I met you. Her name was Victoria. Rosie stiffened. Leonard had mentioned an ex in passing, but never with details. We were together for 2 years, Leonard continued. I was 28, thought I'd found the one. Proposed. Started planning a wedding. And then I found out she'd been cheating on me for 6 months with one of my business partners. Leonard. When I confronted her, you know what she said? Leonard's voice was bitter. She said she only stayed with me for the lifestyle. The money. The connections. Said I was boring and predictable but the perks were worth it. Rosie felt a flash of sympathy despite everything. That's awful. But that was her. Not me. I know. Logically, I know that. Leonard's jaw clenched. But when we got married, when you moved into this penthouse, when you stopped working because you didn't have to anymore, I started wondering. Started questioning whether you really loved me or whether you just loved the life I could give you. So you decided to make me miserable to find out? Rosie's voice hardened. Instead of talking to me about your fears, instead of going to therapy together, you chose to test me like I was Victoria? It wasn't rational. No, it wasn't, Rosie interrupted. It was cruel. You took your trauma from a past relationship and made it my punishment. You made me pay for someone else's sins. I know. Leonard's voice cracked. I know I was wrong. I know I hurt you. And I am so sorry. Silence stretched between them. I need you to understand something, Rosie said finally. When I married you, I loved you. Just you. Leonard Davis the man, not Leonard Davis the billionaire. I didn't care about the money. I know that now. Do you? Rosie challenged. Because here's the thing. If you really knew that, you wouldn't have needed to test me. Trust isn't proven through trials. Trust is given freely and protected carefully. And you didn't trust me. You never trusted me. That's not true. It is true, Rosie said firmly. You married me while doubting me. And instead of working on that doubt, instead of addressing your trust issues, you made them my problem. My burden to carry. My test to pass. Leonard looked stricken. I didn't see it that way. Of course you didn't. Because you were thinking about yourself. Your fears. Your needs. Your past. Rosie's voice broke. You weren't thinking about me. About what this was doing to me. About how it felt to be rejected by my husband night after night while wondering what I did wrong. Rosie. I blamed myself, Rosie continued, tears streaming down her face now. For months, I blamed myself. I thought I wasn't attractive enough, thin enough, interesting enough. I thought there was something fundamentally wrong with me that made my own husband not want me. There's nothing wrong with you. I know that now. Rosie shouted. But I didn't know that then. Because you were so busy testing me that you didn't stop to think about what your test was doing to my self-worth, my mental health, my sense of self. Leonard stepped forward. I'm so sorry. Please, Rosie, please let me make this right. How? Rosie demanded. How do you make this right? How do you fix the damage you've done? I'll do anything. Therapy. Whatever you need. I need time, Rosie said. I need space to think. To figure out if I can forgive this. If I can trust you again after you proved that you don't trust me. Okay, Leonard said quickly. Okay. Take all the time you need. I'm going to stay in the guest room, Rosie said. We're still living together, but we're not sharing a bed. Not until I decide what I want to do. Leonard's face fell, but he nodded. I understand. And I need you to understand something else, Rosie said. This isn't a test. This isn't me playing games or trying to punish you. This is me protecting myself while I figure out if this marriage is something I want to save. I want to save it, Leonard said desperately. I love you, Rosie. I know I've shown it badly, but I do love you. I believe that you think you do, Rosie said quietly. But love isn't just a feeling, Leonard. Love is action. Love is trust. Love is choosing your partner every day and treating them with respect and honesty. And you haven't done that. You might love me, but you haven't loved me well. The truth of her words hung in the air between them. I want to learn, Leonard said. I want to learn how to love you well. Will you let me try? Rosie looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the man she'd fallen in love with 3 years ago. The man who'd made her laugh, who'd seen her as a person, who'd promised to spend his life with her. But she also saw the man who'd hurt her deliberately, who'd tested her loyalty instead of trusting her love, who'd put his trauma above her well-being. Could people change? Could Leonard learn to love her without reservations, without tests, without doubt? She didn't know. "I'll think about it," Rosie said finally. "But I'm not making any promises. And I need you to understand that even if I decide to try, things will never go back to the way they were. We can't unknow what we know now. We can't undo what's been done." "I understand," Leonard said. "Whatever you need. However long it takes." Rosie nodded. She picked up her purse and walked toward the guest room, but paused at the door. "Leonard," she said without turning around. "Yeah. Thank you for finally telling me the truth. Even if it hurts, I'd rather know than keep wondering. I should have told you sooner." "Yeah," Rosie agreed. "You should have." She closed the guest room door behind her and leaned against it, eyes closed. 12 months of pain finally had an explanation. But having an explanation didn't make the pain go away. If anything, it made it worse. Because now she knew it had been deliberate. Intentional. A choice Leonard made every single day. Rosie changed into pajamas and climbed into the guest bed. The room felt foreign, temporary. Like she was a visitor in her own home. Maybe she was. Maybe she'd been a visitor all along, and she'd just been too in love to notice. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. "Sienna, how'd it go?" "Rosie." He explained everything. Past relationship trauma. Trust issues. All the things I suspected. Sienna. And Rosie. "And I don't know if that makes it better or worse." "Sienna, do you want to leave him?" Rosie stared at the message. Could she imagine her life without Leonard? Walking away from 3 years of marriage, from the man she'd loved with everything she had? "Rosie, I don't know. I don't know anything anymore." "Sienna, that's okay. You don't have to know yet. Just be gentle with yourself." "Rosie, thanks for being there today." "Sienna, always. That's what best friends are for." "Love you, girl." "Rosie, love you too." Rosie set her phone aside and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the penthouse, Leonard was probably lying in their bed, the same way she'd lain alone for 12 months. How did it feel, she wondered? To finally have the shoe on the other foot? To be the one lying alone wondering if your partner would come back? Part of her, a petty, hurt part, hoped it felt as awful as it had for her. But mostly, she just felt tired. Tired of hurting. Tired of wondering. Tired of loving someone who'd hurt her so deeply. Rosie closed her eyes and tried to sleep. But sleep didn't come easily. It never did anymore. Okay, I need to pause here. We're at a crossroads in Rosie and Leonard's story. What do you think Rosie should do? Stay and try to work it out? Leave and start over? Something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because this story is about to take some unexpected turns. Part 3 continues now. The next few days passed in a strange, uncomfortable limbo. Rosie and Leonard moved around each other like satellites in separate orbits, sharing the same space but never quite connecting. Leonard gave her space like she'd asked. He worked from home more, making himself available if she wanted to talk. But he didn't push. Didn't demand attention or forgiveness. For that, at least, Rosie was grateful. She spent her days trying to figure out what she wanted. She met with Sienna twice more. She went to yoga classes and tried to meditate through the chaos in her head. She walked through Pike Place Market, watching tourists and locals alike, wondering what their lives were like. If their marriages were easier. If anyone's marriage was ever easy. She also made a phone call she'd been avoiding. "Ma," Rosie said when her mother answered. "Rosie, what a nice surprise." Her mother's warm voice carried the faint accent that remained even after 40 years in America. "How are you, sweetie?" Rosie settled onto the couch in the guest room. I'm not okay, Ma. The warmth shifted immediately to concern. What's wrong? Are you sick? No. It's Leonard. Silence. Then, what did he do? Leave it to her mother to assume immediately that Leonard was the problem. She'd always been protective, always ready to defend her daughter. Rosie told her everything. The 12 months of distance. The revelation. The test. All of it. When she finished, her mother was quiet for a long moment. That boy is lucky he's across the country, her mother finally said, voice tight with anger. Because if he were here, I would have some words for him. Despite everything, Rosie smiled. I know, Ma. What are you going to do? I don't know. He says he wants to fix it. Says he'll do whatever it takes. Do you believe him? I want to, Rosie admitted. But I don't know if wanting to believe him is enough. Let me ask you something, her mother said. If you could go back in time, back before you knew about the test, would you want to stay in that marriage? Living like that? Feeling like that? No, Rosie said immediately. Of course not. Then why would you stay in it now? Just because you know the reason doesn't change what happened. Doesn't change how he made you feel. But he wants to change. People don't change just because they want to, her mother interrupted gently. They change because they do the work. And even then, sometimes the damage is too deep to fix. Are you saying I should leave him? I'm saying you need to be honest with yourself about what you can forgive and what you can't. Marriage is hard, Rosie. Even in the best circumstances. But it shouldn't make you feel small. It shouldn't make you question your worth. Rosie's eyes burned with tears. I love him, Ma. I know you do, baby. But sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes we have to love ourselves more than we love the person who hurt us. After she hung up with her mother, Rosie sat in the quiet guest room and let herself really think about the question her mother had posed. Could she forgive Leonard? Maybe. With time, with therapy, with work. But did she want to? That was the real question. Not could she, but did she want to put in the work to rebuild something that Leonard had deliberately broken? Question for you. How important is forgiveness in a relationship? Can love survive without it? Or is forgiveness essential? Tell me your thoughts. Her phone buzzed with a calendar reminder. Dinner with Leonard's parents. Tomorrow night. She'd forgotten about it. Rosie stared at the reminder. The last thing she wanted was to sit through dinner with Richard and Catherine Davis, pretending everything was fine. But canceling would raise questions she wasn't ready to answer. She walked out of the guest room and found Leonard in his home office, staring at his computer screen without really seeing it. We have dinner with your parents tomorrow, Rosie said from the doorway. Leonard looked up, startled. Right. I forgot. Do you still want to go? Do I have a choice? Of course you do. I can cancel. Say we're busy. Rosie considered it. But hiding from Leonard's parents wouldn't solve anything. And part of her was curious. Did they know about the test? Had Leonard told them? Or was she the only one who'd been kept in the dark? We'll go, she decided. But we're not telling them anything. Not yet. Leonard nodded slowly. Okay. Whatever you're comfortable with. Rosie turned to leave, but Leonard's voice stopped her. Rosie. Yeah. Thank you. For not giving up yet. For still being here. She looked at him, really looked at him. He looked as tired as she felt. Dark circles under his eyes. Hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Suit jacket discarded, tie loosened. He was suffering too. That much was obvious. But was his suffering born of genuine remorse? Or just regret at getting caught? At facing consequences? She didn't know. And that uncertainty was its own kind of torture. I haven't decided to stay, Rosie said quietly. I'm just here. For now. Don't mistake that for forgiveness. I won't, Leonard promised. I know I have to earn that. Rosie nodded and went back to the guest room. She had less than 24 hours to prepare herself to sit across from Leonard's parents and pretend her marriage wasn't falling apart. The Davis family estate was in Medina, the same exclusive neighborhood where Bill Gates lived. Old money combined with new money, creating an enclave of wealth that most people only saw from the water. Leonard and Rosie drove in silence, the Tesla humming quietly as Leonard navigated the familiar route. Rosie wore a simple but elegant dress, navy blue, conservative, appropriate. She'd learned early in her marriage that Catherine Davis had opinions about everything, including her daughter-in-law's wardrobe. The estate came into view, sprawling brick mansion with manicured lawns, ivy climbing the walls, old growth trees providing shade and privacy. It was beautiful in an intimidating way. Leonard pulled up to the circular driveway and parked. Neither of them moved. Are you ready? Leonard asked quietly. No, Rosie said honestly. But let's get this over with. They walked to the front door together, not touching, maintaining careful distance. The door opened before they could knock, Catherine's housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, greeting them with a warm smile. Mr. Davis, Mrs. Davis, wonderful to see you. They're in the dining room already. Of course they were. Catherine didn't believe in casual cocktail hours. Dinner was at 7 sharp. Leonard and Rosie followed Mrs. Chen through the house. Rosie had been here dozens of times, but it always felt foreign. Formal. Like a museum rather than a home. The dining room was exactly as she remembered. Long mahogany table, crystal chandelier, original artwork on the walls. Richard and Catherine Davis sat at opposite ends of the table, dressed for dinner like it was a society event rather than a family meal. Leonard. Rosie. Catherine stood, offering air kisses that didn't quite connect. So lovely to see you both. Catherine Davis was 63 but looked 50. Money bought good dermatologists. Her blonde hair was styled perfectly, her designer dress impeccable. She'd been beautiful once and worked hard to maintain it. Richard Davis stood more slowly. 70 years old, white hair, distinguished in the way only old money men could be. He offered Leonard a firm handshake and Rosie a polite nod. Good to see you, son. Rosie. They sat. Rosie ended up next to Leonard, across from his parents. Wine was poured, expensive red that Rosie knew cost more than most people's monthly mortgage. She took a sip and tried to prepare herself for whatever this evening would bring. So, Catherine said, her sharp eyes on Rosie. How have you been, dear? We haven't seen you in ages. 2 months. It had been 2 months. But to Catherine, that was probably ages. I've been well, Rosie said, forcing a smile. Busy with various projects. Projects? Catherine's perfectly shaped eyebrow rose. I didn't realize you were working again. The subtle dig landed as intended. Catherine had never approved of Rosie quitting her job after the wedding. Not because she believed women should work, Catherine herself had never worked a day in her life, but because it made Rosie look like she'd married Leonard for his money. Which, ironically, was exactly what Leonard had worried about. Personal projects, Rosie clarified. Volunteer work, mostly. How nice, Catherine said in a tone that suggested it was anything but. Dinner was served, some complicated French dish that Rosie had no appetite for. She pushed food around her plate and tried to look engaged as Richard and Leonard discussed business. Some investment opportunity, some merger, some deal that would make rich people richer. And how is your mother, Rosie? Catherine asked suddenly. Still in California? Yes, still in the Bay Area. She's well. Give her my regards, Catherine said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The two women had met exactly twice. Once at the wedding, once at Christmas 2 years ago. They'd been polite to each other with the kind of cold politeness that spoke volumes about what they really thought. I know that now, Rosie shouted. But I didn't know that then. Because you were so busy testing me that you didn't stop to think about what your test was doing to my self-worth, my mental health, my sense of self. Leonard stepped forward. I'm so sorry. Please, Rosie. Please let me make this right. How? Rosie demanded. How do you make this right? How do you fix the damage you've done? I'll do anything. Therapy. Whatever you need. I need time, Rosie said. I need space to think. To figure out if I can forgive this. If I can trust you again after you proved that you don't trust me. Okay, Leonard said quickly. Okay. Take all the time you need. I'm going to stay in the guest room, Rosie said. We're still living together, but we're not sharing a bed. Not until I decide what I want to do. Leonard's face fell, but he nodded. I understand. And I need you to understand something else, Rosie said. This isn't a test. This isn't me playing games or trying to punish you. This is me protecting myself while I figure out if this marriage is something I want to save. I want to save it, Leonard said desperately. I love you, Rosie. I know I've shown it badly, but I do love you. I believe that you think you do, Rosie said quietly. But love isn't just a feeling, Leonard. Love is action. Love is trust. Love is choosing your partner every day and treating them with respect and honesty. And you haven't done that. You might love me, but you haven't loved me well. The truth of her words hung in the air between them. I want to learn, Leonard said. I want to learn how to love you well. Will you let me try? Rosie looked at him, really looked at him. She saw the man she'd fallen in love with 3 years ago. The man who'd made her laugh, who'd seen her as a person, who'd promised to spend his life with her. But she also saw the man who'd hurt her deliberately. Who'd tested her loyalty instead of trusting her love. Who'd put his trauma above her well-being. Could people change? Could Leonard learn to love her without reservations, without tests, without doubt? She didn't know. I'll think about it, Rosie said finally. But I'm not making any promises. And I need you to understand that even if I decide to try, things will never go back to the way they were. We can't unknow what we know now. We can't undo what's been done. I understand, Leonard said. Whatever you need. However long it takes. Rosie nodded. She picked up her purse and walked toward the guest room, but paused at the door. Leonard, she said without turning around. Yeah. Thank you for finally telling me the truth. Even if it hurts, I'd rather know than keep wondering. I should have told you sooner. Yeah, Rosie agreed. You should have. She closed the guest room door behind her and leaned against it, eyes closed. 12 months of pain finally had an explanation. But having an explanation didn't make the pain go away. If anything, it made it worse. Because now she knew it had been deliberate. Intentional. A choice Leonard made every single day. Rosie changed into pajamas and climbed into the guest bed. The room felt foreign, temporary. Like she was a visitor in her own home. Maybe she was. Maybe she'd been a visitor all along, and she'd just been too in love to notice. Her phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. Sienna, how'd it go? Rosie. He explained everything. Past relationship trauma. Trust issues. All the things I suspected. Sienna. And Rosie. And I don't know if that makes it better or worse. Sienna. Do you want to leave him? Rosie stared at the message. Did she? Could she imagine her life without Leonard? Walking away from 3 years of marriage, from the man she'd loved with everything she had? Rosie. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. Sienna, that's okay. You don't have to know yet. Just be gentle with yourself. Rosie, thanks for being there today. Sienna, always. That's what best friends are for. Love you, girl. Rosie, love you too. Rosie set her phone aside and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the penthouse, Leonard was probably lying in their bed, the same way she'd lain alone for 12 months. How did it feel, she wondered, to finally have the shoe on the other foot? To be the one lying alone wondering if your partner would come back? Part of her, a petty, hurt part, hoped it felt as awful as it had for her. But mostly, she just felt tired. Tired of hurting. Tired of wondering. Tired of loving someone who'd hurt her so deeply. Rosie closed her eyes and tried to sleep. But sleep didn't come easily. It never did anymore. Okay, I need to pause here. We're at a crossroads in Rosie and Leonard's story. What do you think Rosie should do? Stay and try to work it out? Leave and start over? Something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because this story is about to take some unexpected turns. Part 3 continues now. The next few days passed in a strange, uncomfortable limbo. Rosie and Leonard moved around each other like satellites in separate orbits, sharing the same space but never quite connecting. Leonard gave her space like she'd asked. He worked from home more, making himself available if she wanted to talk. But he didn't push. Didn't demand attention or forgiveness. For that, at least, Rosie was grateful. She spent her days trying to figure out what she wanted. She met with Sienna twice more. She went to yoga classes and tried to meditate through the chaos in her head. She walked through Pike Place Market, watching tourists and locals alike, wondering what their lives were like. If their marriages were easier. If anyone's marriage was ever easy. She also made a phone call she'd been avoiding. "Ma," Rosie said when her mother answered. "Rosie, what a nice surprise." Her mother's warm voice carried the faint accent that remained even after 40 years in America. "How are you, sweetie?" Rosie settled onto the couch in the guest room. I'm not okay, Ma." The warmth shifted immediately to concern. "What's wrong? Are you sick?" "No. It's Leonard." Silence. Then, what did he do? Leave it to her mother to assume immediately that Leonard was the problem. She'd always been protective, always ready to defend her daughter. Rosie told her everything. The 12 months of distance. The revelation. The test. All of it. When she finished, her mother was quiet for a long moment. "That boy is lucky he's across the country," her mother finally said, voice tight with anger. "Because if he were here, I would have some words for him." Despite everything, Rosie smiled. "I know, Ma. What are you going to do?" "I don't know. He says he wants to fix it. Says he'll do whatever it takes." "Do you believe him?" "I want to," Rosie admitted. "But I don't know if wanting to believe him is enough." "I will," Rosie said. "You know," Catherine continued, setting down her wine glass, "I was just saying to Richard the other day how wonderful it is that you and Leonard have found such a comfortable rhythm in your marriage." Comfortable. The word hung in the air. Rosie felt Leonard tense beside her. Comfortable. Rosie repeated carefully. "Well, yes. You seem very settled." Content. Catherine's eyes were shrewd. Not all marriages have that kind of stability. Rosie wondered if Catherine could sense the fractures. If Mother's intuition could detect that her son's marriage was crumbling from the inside out. "We're very happy," Leonard said firmly. "Of course you are," Catherine agreed. "Although I must say, I do wonder when we might expect grandchildren. You've been married 3 years now. Most couples would have started a family by now." Rosie's stomach clenched. Children. She and Leonard had talked about it in the abstract, someday way that newlyweds do. But they'd never seriously discussed timing. And now the thought of bringing a child into their broken marriage made Rosie want to laugh. Or cry. Maybe both. "We're not rushing into anything," Rosie said carefully. "Rushing?" Catherine laughed. "Darling, at your age, waiting too long can become problematic. Women's fertility decreases significantly after 35, you know." "I'm 34, Rosie said flatly. "Exactly." Time is of the essence. Real talk. Do you think it's okay for in-laws to pressure couples about having children? Or is that completely crossing a line? Let me know in the comments. Mother. Leonard's voice held a warning. That's between Rosie and me. I'm simply saying. We know what you're saying, Leonard interrupted. And we'll have children when and if we decide the time is right. Not because of anyone else's timeline. Catherine's eyes narrowed. No need to be defensive, Leonard. I'm merely concerned. Don't be, Leonard said firmly. Silence fell over the table. Richard cleared his throat uncomfortably and changed the subject to something about golf. Rosie focused on her wine, counting the minutes until they could leave. After dinner, Catherine pulled Rosie aside while the men retired to Richard's study for brandy and cigars, because apparently they were living in a Jane Austen novel. Walk with me, dear, Catherine said. It wasn't a request. They moved through the house to the conservatory, Catherine's pride and joy, full of orchids and other expensive plants that required constant care. I want to apologize if I overstepped, Catherine said, not sounding sorry at all. The children comment. It's not my business. No, it's not, Rosie agreed. Catherine smiled thinly. You know, I've never been one to beat around the bush, Rosie. So I'll ask you directly, is everything all right with you and Leonard? Rosie stiffened. Why would you ask that? Because I'm not blind. I see the way you sit apart from each other. The way you barely speak. The tension. Catherine examined one of her orchids. You forget, I've been married for 40 years. I know what a struggling marriage looks like. We're fine, Rosie said automatically. Are you? Catherine turned to face her fully. Because you don't look fine. You look miserable. And my son looks guilty. The observation was too accurate to dismiss. What happens between Leonard and me is our business, Rosie said. Of course it is. But Leonard is my son. And if something is wrong, I'd like to help. Can you? Rosie asked before she could stop herself. Can you help? Or would you just make it worse? Catherine's expression shifted slightly. That depends on what the problem is. Rosie laughed hollowly. The problem is your son doesn't trust me. Never trusted me. Spent a year testing me to see if I was good enough. And now I don't know if I can forgive that. The words tumbled out before Rosie could stop them. Catherine's face went carefully blank. He told you, Catherine said quietly. Rosie froze. You knew. I suspected, Catherine admitted. He asked me about it. About whether he should. She stopped herself. Whether he should test me, Rosie finished. And what did you say? Catherine looked away. I told him that trust was essential in marriage. That he needed to be certain of his feelings and yours before making any decisions. So you endorsed it, Rosie said, anger building. You told him it was okay to torture his wife for a year just to make sure she wasn't after his money. I didn't endorse. Yes, you did, Rosie interrupted. Maybe not explicitly. But you validated his doubts. Suggested they were reasonable. That I needed to prove myself worthy of being his wife. Catherine's jaw tightened. That's not. It is what happened, Rosie said firmly. And you know what? I'm done. I'm done proving myself to this family. Done trying to measure up to some impossible standard of what a Davis wife should be. Done pretending that Leonard's trust issues are my problem to solve. Rosie. No. Rosie held up a hand. You want to know if something's wrong with my marriage? Yes. Something's very wrong. And part of it is this family's inability to see me as anything other than an outsider who needs to constantly prove she belongs. Catherine's expression hardened. You're upset. I understand. But you're being unfair. Unfair. Rosie's voice rose. You know what's unfair? Being judged for 3 years by a woman who decided on day one that I wasn't good enough for her son. being scrutinized and criticized and constantly reminded that I'm not from your world, don't understand your ways, don't quite fit. I never said. You didn't have to say it. I felt it. Every single time we were in the same room. Rosie's hands were shaking. And maybe, just maybe, if you had welcomed me instead of tolerating me, Leonard would have felt secure enough in our marriage not to test me. The words hung between them, ugly and true. Catherine's face was pale. I see I've given you the wrong impression. No, Rosie said. You've given me exactly the right impression. And I'm tired of pretending otherwise. She turned and walked back toward the house, leaving Catherine alone with her orchids. Leonard and Richard were just emerging from the study when Rosie found them in the hallway. We need to go, Rosie said to Leonard. Now. Leonard took one look at her face and nodded. Okay. Leaving so soon? Richard asked, oblivious. We haven't had dessert. We have an early morning, Leonard said quickly. Another time. Thank you for dinner. They were in the car before anyone could protest further. Leonard started driving before speaking. What happened? Your mother knew, Rosie said. About the test. She knew, and she didn't stop you. Leonard's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She didn't know details. She knew enough. And she validated your doubts instead of telling you that you were being an idiot. Rosie stared out the window at the passing mansions. Does your whole family think I'm some kind of gold digger who needs to prove herself worthy? No. Don't lie to me, Leonard. Not now. Silence. Some of them had concerns, Leonard finally admitted. When we first got engaged, they thought it was too fast. That you might have ulterior motives. And you. Rosie turned to look at him. Did you defend me? Or did you let them plant those seeds of doubt? Leonard's jaw clenched. I told them they were wrong. But you didn't believe it yourself, Rosie said. Otherwise you wouldn't have needed to test me. They drove the rest of the way in silence. When they got home, Rosie went straight to the guest room and locked the door. She was done. Done with Leonard's family. Done with proving herself. Done with feeling like she wasn't enough. The question was she also done with her marriage? The next morning, Rosie woke to find a note slipped under her door. I told my mother that her behavior toward you has been unacceptable. That she needs to apologize. That you deserve respect and I should have demanded it from day one. I'm sorry I didn't protect you better from my family's judgment. That ends now. Al. Rosie read the note 3 times. It was something. A step in the right direction. But was it enough? She got dressed and emerged from the guest room to find Leonard making breakfast. He turned when he heard her. Morning, he said carefully. Morning. I made coffee. And eggs, if you're hungry. Rosie poured herself coffee and sat at the counter. Thank you. For what you said in the note. I meant it. My mother had no right. It's not just your mother, Rosie interrupted. It's the whole situation. Your family's doubts, your trust issues, this entire year of being tested without knowing it. All of it. Leonard set down the spatula and turned to face her fully. I know I can't fix this overnight. I know I've broken something that might not be reparable. But I'm asking you, please give me a chance to try. Let me prove to you that I can be the husband you deserve. Quick pause. Do you think people who break trust should get a second chance? Or is once broken, forever broken? Your thoughts. You want to prove yourself to me, Rosie said slowly. Do you see the irony in that? You made me prove myself for a year. And now you want me to let you prove yourself to me. Leonard flinched. I deserve that. Yeah, you do. Rosie took a sip of her coffee. Here's what I need from you, Leonard. I need complete honesty. No more games, no more tests, no more holding back. I need you to go to therapy, individual therapy, not just couples therapy. You need to work through your trust issues with a professional. I will. I'll call someone today. I'm not finished, Rosie interrupted. I also need time. Real time. To figure out if I can forgive you. If I can trust you again. If I even want to stay married to you. Leonard went pale. Rosie. I'm not saying I'm leaving, Rosie said. But I'm not saying I'm staying either. I'm saying I need time to figure out what I want. And you need to respect that. No pressure, no ultimatums, no trying to rush me into a decision. Okay, Leonard said quietly. Whatever you need. And one more thing, Rosie continued. I want access to everything. Your phone, your email, your calendar. If you want me to trust you again, you need to give me complete transparency. No more secrets. Leonard nodded immediately. Done. You can have my passwords right now. Check whatever you want, whenever you want. I shouldn't have to, Rosie said. That's the point. I shouldn't need to check your phone because I should be able to trust you. But you broke that trust. So until I can rebuild it, I need access. You have it, Leonard promised. Rosie studied him. He looked sincere, desperate, scared. Good. He should be scared. He should understand that his marriage was hanging by a thread and that thread was entirely in her hands now. I'm going to stay in the guest room, Rosie said. For however long I need. We can have dinner together, spend time together, but we're not rushing back to physical intimacy. Not until I'm ready. I understand. And if I decide I want to leave, if I decide this marriage can't be saved, you're going to respect that decision. No trying to change my mind, no grand gestures, no begging. Clean break. Leonard's face crumpled slightly, but he nodded. If that's what you decide, I'll respect it. Okay then. Rosie stood up. I'm going to meet Sienna for lunch. I'll be back this afternoon. She left before Leonard could respond. Outside, the Seattle sun was actually shining for once. Rosie tilted her face toward it, feeling the warmth on her skin. For the first time in 12 months, she felt like she had some control back. Some agency in her own marriage. It wasn't much. But it was something. And right now, something was all she had. Rosie and Leonard's journey is about to take some turns you won't see coming. Will Rosie forgive him? Will Leonard prove he's changed? Or will this marriage end in heartbreak? Here's what I need from you. Drop a comment telling me what you would do in Rosie's position. Stay or leave. Forgive or walk away. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now because you need to see how this ends. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching, for engaging, for caring about these characters as much as I do. Your support means everything. I'll see you in the next part. Stay blessed, stay strong, and remember, you deserve a love that doesn't make you prove your worth. Always.